Hi, it's February 3rd, 2023. My name is Allie. Welcome to my channel, Prodigal Allie, formerly known as Allie's Big Toe. And the other day I was talking to a friend and he asked me, what are you doing with your activism? And I had to pause and think for a moment. I responded, I said, well, I've been doing these daily grace devotionals and just reading out of this book that my friend Jim wrote. But other than that, I don't know. This whole concept of activism is very odd and interesting to me now. I don't really consider myself an activist. Maybe I did at one time. I just feel so unqualified. Who's qualified to be an activist? First of all, I think you have to be somewhat articulate and engaging with an audience that people want to listen. I don't feel that way about myself, but I appreciate people who still continue to ask me how I'm doing and share that they appreciate the things I've done in the past, whether it was a part of their waking up story or just helping them not feel so alone. And certainly the greatest compliments I ever receive is that I help people maintain or keep or hold on to faith. And I know how important others who have helped me when I'm having struggles and crises with faith and just wondering, where is God? Is he even listening? And hearing other people's testimony, it's always so strengthening. So I'm just popping in to check in real quick. I'm at the beach, just not Mexican beach. Here's a little view of where I am. It is 2 degrees Fahrenheit here in Wisconsin. This is Lake Michigan. These people are on the ice shelf. And it is minus 24 with the wind chill. So I am in my car, not outside. Way too cold. But back to what I was talking about. I just wanted to pop in, say hi. I'm always having these conversations in my head and not really articulating them out loud, much less with other people. I've found the last couple years that I get really spaced out in social settings, especially if it's more than 2 or 3 people, like talking in a group. I just freeze, go blank. It's almost like I'm having an out-of-body experience where I can hear myself speaking, but not from like behind my eyes. Like I'm 2 people and I'm over here listening to myself. And then like when you're talking on the phone and you hear an echo, it's hard to talk while hearing yourself in an echo. That's how I feel almost all the time lately. And rather than getting help or figuring out why, I just figured I'm broken, I'm messed up, I'm just going to retreat, go within, talk less, listen more, and hopefully this will go away. And then a couple days ago, I revisited a YouTube channel that I'd watched a couple of her videos, I don't know, maybe a couple years ago. And you know how when you're listening to something and you know it's good, you know it's helpful, but then you listen to it later in your life and it just hits you on such a deeper level and you're like, wow, like it just is kind of mind-blowing. That's how I felt when listening to this YouTube channel a couple days ago. The channel's name is Crappy Childhood Fairy, which is a funny name, but it's very appropriate because a lot of people have crappy childhoods, and I was always the sort where I was like, well, my childhood wasn't that crappy. Other people have had it way worse. So I would just dismiss it. I would dismiss the things that happened to me in early development and just be like, it wasn't that bad. But whether something that happened in your childhood, you perceive it as really bad or not, it still can have neurological consequences. And that's what this woman really talks about. She's not a therapist, she's not a doctor, but she's someone who has overcome and has since thrived after addressing the neurological damage that happens from having a crappy childhood. And I was thinking about this. I was actually talking with my mom about this the other day. And I would like to have like a sit down conversation with her to just show that relationships, child parent, can absolutely grow beyond and blossom and really be beautiful despite having a crappy childhood. And I love my mom, and she's the first to admit that she wasn't really a good mom. So that's validating. But also I don't want her to condemn herself. Everybody loves my mom now, especially. She's very lovable. She loves people. That's why people love my mom. But just because you love people doesn't necessarily make you equipped to be a good parent. And being a good parent now, especially being several years removed from the Jehovah's Witness organization, wow, how can you be a good parent when you are literally under that kind of pressure, that kind of mind control, behavior control, thought control, emotion control, where you can't be yourself, and you certainly can't let your child be him or herself. So that is a recipe for a crappy childhood. Even if you had nice parents, even if your parents bought you presents on non-calendar designated days like your birthday or Christmas, if they tried to make it as good as possible, you still weren't raising a child and encouraging him or her to explore, be really curious, and ask questions, make mistakes. Yeah. So after watching this video a couple days ago, I signed up for her course, Healing Complex PTSD from having a crappy childhood, trauma, specifically trauma and neglect in those very formative, important years. And it clicked like, wow, this is why I glitch up, why things lock up, and I get flooded. I thought I was just not feeling things. Like, people be like, how are you? And I would do a quick scan and just be like, I'm meh. Like, that was my answer. Meh. Like, not great, not bad. And I just thought like, oh, I'm just like depressed. I'm Eeyore. But actually, when you can't even articulate how you're feeling, it's because you're feeling so much, you're getting overwhelmed and overloaded that you just kind of go blank. Why am I talking about all of this? It's interesting. I don't go back and watch my old videos, but I remember while I was making them, and I remember feeling so excited to finally be allowed to have a voice, to finally be allowed to ask questions, to have opinions, to do research and then share. I mean, it's exciting to do research on any topic, but I was excited and angry and sad from the findings that I was learning as I was realizing that I was not in this thing called the truth. And just realizing, wow, there is so much I don't know. And when you start from a place of not knowing, then you're allowed to explore and approach things with humility and curiosity, because you don't already know everything, or you don't already think you know everything. So I was so excited, and it was like, like you see these videos where, well, here I live in Wisconsin, the cows stay in the barn all winter because it's too cold outside and the grass is covered with snow, so they have nothing to eat outside. So they're in the barn eating hay. And I love these videos where you see like the first day of spring when the farmer lets the cow out, and the cow is just jumping and bounding and playing and so happy to be in the grass. Like, that was how I first felt when I left Watchtower. I had been let out of the Watchtower barn, and I was like, I want to share all of these things. And that's what I did. It was a creative outlet, and I met some amazing people who continue to be beautiful friends in my life. So I have no regrets. But then gradually, I'm like, well, I don't really need to talk about my leaving Watchtower experience anymore, because there's all these other new activists who are super articulate and know how to make videos and edit and add music and screenshots and blah, blah, blah. And I just was like, I'm good. Like, I'm going to retire. So it wasn't so much that I went back into the barn. I'm not going back into that barn, but I just kind of walked into the woods by myself and was like, I'm going to let the more technologically creative and articulate people make videos. But I missed the creative outlet and the connection with other people. I missed it. And I would do this rehearsal thing in my head where I'm like, well, I want to make a video about this, because I've constantly been learning about all sorts of things since leaving, and it's fun to toss the ball around, so to speak, on platforms like this and be like, I learned this, pass the ball. What did you learn? And, like, have a fun volley. But back to this channel, Crappy Childhood Fairy, I'm realizing now, and it's giving me hope, that you can reprogram your brain after or with complex PTSD, among other things. Another thing I just wanted to talk about, why am I sharing these things? Because maybe you are listening to this and you have similar symptoms and you don't know what to do. Maybe you've gone to years and years of therapy where you talked about the trauma, you talked about your childhood, you talked about all these difficult memories, but you still don't feel better. You're still not doing better. You're still falling into poor habits and neglectful, like not taking care of yourself. Why is that? Neurology. So there are simple things, but you have to do them every day. And that's where I'm still struggling, which is why vacation was so wonderful. Waking up every day, watching the sunrise with my mom, doing something like reading a devotional that's all about grace. It's like taking a shower every day. And that was one of the devotionals that Jim had talked about, like shower and bathe in God's grace every day. Like, it is extremely healing. So I know I haven't shared this every day, but I do want to get back into doing that. So that's been one resource that is looking extremely promising for me, and I just wanted to share it with people who have watched my videos in the past, because I feel like when we were in Watchtower, it was like, those Japanese women, I don't know if they still do this to them, but having small feet was, I guess, something very prestigious and attractive, so they would bind their feet. And then years later, you take the cast off and the toes are all broken and the foot never grew and they can't walk normal. Like, that's how I feel now. Like, I walk with a limp, but that doesn't mean I can't seek out physical therapy, neurological therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, other therapies to slowly help repair the damage that was done by being born in a cast. And I feel like in the years since leaving Watchtower, it's exposed how I have had arrested development. And often it would just really get me down. I would compare myself to other people in my same age bracket who are more successful, better public speakers, better at relationships. And I would just feel so far behind and like I'm never gonna catch up. But that's not the point. The point is, and this is where grace plays such a big role, like me, first of all, knowing that God has nothing but grace for me. Jesus has nothing but grace for me. So why do I have less than grace for myself? And it comes back to the programming that so many of us received, especially as born-in Jehovah's Witnesses, that there's no grace. You got to get on that hamster wheel, get in your hours, show up, put the mask on of the I'm fine smile, all of that stuff. And so for me, part of living a graceful life is not comparing myself to others and where they're at, and every day just doing those little steps. So I wanted to share that, and also just read this little blurb from the Space for Grace daily devotional by Jim Fielder on February, because we have started a new month. We're in February, and for February, it's all about people Jesus met. And every day Jim talks about a different person. For example, February 1st was about Mary. And I'm not going to go back and record the days that were missing. I hope you just get the book for yourself and find a space for grace to read these devotionals for yourself. But I do want to leave them as much as I can. My mom texted me yesterday. She's like, space for grace. We need it. Yes, we do. Another book I've been reading a lot more and watching a lot less mindless television, and that's been really good for my brain. But this book, I consciously try not to read too many Watchtower books because I read so many when I first left. But this one has been pretty interesting. It's called New Boy, Life and Death at the World Headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses by Keith, where's his name? By Keith Casarona. And I think this book only came out a couple years ago. It's really good. It's been interesting for me to read it because I lived in New Jersey and New York City for several years in my early 20s and mid 20s. And I always had this perception of what Bethel was all about. The house of God. I thought that was like the epicenter for Holy Spirit. Like I remember one of the congregations I was in New Jersey, we talked about, because I wanted to hear like about what it was like being in a congregation in the Midwest. And first of all, the people in New Jersey were more educated. I don't know why, like, higher education is more allowed on the East Coast. I don't know. But I remember having this conversation with one of the sisters in the congregation and saying, yeah, I feel like the farther away you get from Bethel, the less Holy Spirit there is. How ridiculous. But this book has been really good. I never realized, like, wow, what a hellhole that place was, especially for the Bethelites. Because I went on a bunch of Bethel tours, and just like we were doing at the Kingdom Hall, being all fake nice and love bomby, they had to put on this facade of being super happy, working in a factory in pretty horrible conditions, like noise levels, people having hearing problems, breaking bones and never really getting correct rehabilitation because Bethel didn't want to pay for their medical expenses, things like that. It's a good book. So I do recommend that. And yeah, so that's my little check-in with y'all. In the comment section, if you care to, if you've been out of Watchtower for, more than, let's say, 3-4 years, and you've already done the whole work of proving to yourself, like, you're not physically out mentally, and you are physically out mentally out because you prove to yourself that it is not the truth. That's what really liberates you mentally from that prison. But then I feel like we have to keep doing more work, and it's not bad work. It's like going to the gym. You do it to take care of yourself. So what other resources and tools have you found since leaving Watchtower that has helped you holistically in your whole self? Well, thank you for watching. I'm steaming up my car. I got to turn it on. And one more view of the lake.